Advantage Athletic Therapy, personalized rehabilitation programs with a whole body approach. Enjoy the podcast.
It's the May 2026 Boomer Music Experience with my good friend, Randy Halmo. How are you, Randy? Good to see you.
Going good, Dave. How are you? Good morning.
I'm doing great. We're doing part 1 this month of Yacht Rock, and it was kind of funny off air. We were talking about this, and I'm like, I'd never heard it called that growing up listening to all this music, all these bands we're about to talk about. And I asked you the same question. Did you hear it? And you said no. It's an interesting phenomenon that came out of this sort of subgenre of music that sort of formed into the yacht rock. That's here we are in 2026, and that's what people call it. Which I'd like to get your thoughts on that before we get started.
Yeah, I like the term yacht rock because that pertains, it's very close to our area here, Port Dover Yacht Club, and some of the other yacht clubs around in the vicinity. Um, that's a good, catchy phrase, yacht rock. I love that phrase. And thanks for introducing that to me, Dave. I never knew a yacht rock in that genre was available, but yes, it is big
Yeah.
time.
And it's with us age, my group aging now, I think that's kind of it's kind of the music that we grew up with, and it has that that jazz R&B smooth feel to it, right? That we sort of come to expect from the mid '70s to mid '80s.
Right on.
And just the polished vocals, the harmonies, it all makes sense to me now that I hear it packaged that way. And I got to admit, I will put it on. Like if I have on one of my apps and it says Yacht Rock, I'm going to probably put it on and listen to it. It's easy. It's easy on the ears. You can relax. You know what I mean? It's exactly that. It's just
Oh
nice
yeah.
music that you grew up with. So let's get into it. Who are some of these bands that are yacht rock music?
Wow. Well, as you had mentioned earlier, part 1 of the show for this month, we have the Doobie Brothers. We have Toto, of course, Hall and Oates, not Hauling Oates, Hall and Oates. Got to watch that one. And Ambrosia, good band from the 80s. We also have in part 2 of the program, Little River Band. Good group. They gave us a lot of good music, a lot of good hits. Steely Dan.
Steely
How
Dan,
good is
man.
that?
Yeah.
Hey, Steely. Boss Skaggs. Boss Skaggs. Oh, yeah. Yeah, Boss Skaggs. And also Looking Glass.
Wow, I forgot
They
about Looking
call
Glass. Good call.
some of the radio announcers call Looking Glass from the 70s, early 80s, kind of, what's the expression they use? Um, Mickey Mouse pop.
Mickey
It's
Mouse
kind
Pop.
of, like it's, but no, Looking Glass is very good. So, the Doobie Brothers, here we go. The Doobie Brothers are an American rock band. They were formed in San Jose, California in 1970. So the Doobie Brothers, for our listeners, Dave, they dominated the rock era, soft rock era, in the decade of the 70s. And the band has been active for over 5 decades. And
Yeah.
with their greatest success, as I mentioned, taking place in the decade of the 70s. One of their team leaders, Tom Johnson, he provided the lead vocals from 1970 to 75 when they featured mainstream rock sound with elements of folk, country, R&B, and kind of and there was a 4th genre, yacht rock. Absolutely, they were there. Mike McDonald, of course, we know Mike McDonald. He resurrected the Motown sound from the mid 1965s there. He joined the band in 1975 as a keyboardist and additional lead vocalist. I like that. Lead vocalist, he's got a good voice. And their first major hit was Taking It to the Streets. Good
Yeah.
song. In 1987, the Doobie Brothers reformed. They had a little bit of a hiatus there. They reformed with Johnson, and you're going to hear Tom Johnson's name quite a bit because he really was the central nervous system of the Doobie Brothers. So Johnson was back. MacDonald, who made several guest appearances after their reformation, they returned full time. You ready for this? In the year of 2019. Here again, the 70s decade, but they're still performing. The group's 16 studio albums include 6 top 10 appearances on the Billboard 200 album chart. That's amazing. Their 1978 album, Minute by Minute, good album. Get a chance to read
Great
that
album.
or to
Yeah.
listen to it. It reached number 1 for 5 weeks and won a Grammy for Best Pop Vocal Performance by a Duo or Group. How good is that? So the Doobies have really established themselves, okay, the decade of the 70s, but they're still performing to some degree as one of the greatest rock bands in the history of music.
They
Also,
and they reunited. They're out touring right now, and
Mhm.
I saw them last, I'm gonna say last fall or maybe earlier this spring on Stephen Colbert. They
Yeah.
sounded phenomenal. They
Yes.
were so good. They're so tight still, and they
Oh,
sound
yeah.
great. Yeah, that one of those bands I haven't seen live yet, but,
Mhm.
I'm still hoping, right? Get to
Hey,
see the Doobies.
you never know, Dave.
That's
One of
right.
the other great songs they had, What a Fool Believes,
Oh,
that was written by Mike McDonald and Kenny Loggins of
yeah.
Loggins and Messina. So here we
Do you know the story behind that song?
No, I don't, Dave.
Can I
Please share.
can I take a minute? Sure.
Yes.
One of the things that I read about that was, Loggins was going over to do some work with Mike McDonald, and he was at the door, and he could hear Mike McDonald playing something on the piano, and he really liked it, and it was What a Fool Believes, and he went in, and he said, "Oh, I was just something I'm working." He goes, "No, let's work on that." Like, he really felt there was something there, Loggins did, and they hashed it out, and, a lot of people didn't think that song was gonna succeed. There was a lot of doubters,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it still it won a Grammy. Like, it was like everybody was giving up on that song, but for some reason, it found its own way, and it became a huge hit, right? Yeah, and Loggins said himself he was surprised that they got the Grammy for it. He was like, they didn't expect it, right? Because again, all the record companies didn't like the song, but it
That's
proved
right.
wrong because the public loved it. So
Yeah.
it's just one of those songs that you're right, and it fits into Yacht Rock perfect.
Yep.
So there you go.
And as you had mentioned, Dave, written by Mike McDonald and Kenny Loggins, uh, it won 2 Grammys, including Song of the Year and Record of the Year. And those are 2 hefty
Yeah,
titles in the Grammy world to have earned and won, both of them. Song of
exactly.
the Year and Record of the Year. The band had 16 Billboard Top 100 Top 140 hits, including Listen to the Music. That's another good one. Jesus is Just All Right. Long Train Running. Another good one. China Grove. Black Water in 1974. Taking It to the Streets. What a Fool Believes in 1979, of course. We just reviewed that. This is quite well done. All of which received rotation on classic hits. A lot of the radio stations were playing doobies almost to saturation point, but their audiences, be it AM or FM radio, they just ate it right up. The Doobie Brothers. Now, they also released 6 live albums and numerous greatest hits compilations, including the 1976's The Best of the Doobies. Good CD. I've got that CD. Certified diamond by the RIAA for reaching album sales, ready for this, of over 10 million copies. The Doobie Brothers were inducted into the Vocal Group Hall of Fame in 2004 and the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, it's a big one. It is the one really you want to get inducted into, and they did. The year was 2020, just 6 years ago.
I didn't know that. Wow.
And the group has sold, here's the clincher, the Doobie Brothers, they have sold more than 40 million records. 40 million records worldwide. That's better than good. Holy Dinah.
I didn't know that either. That's amazing. What a great band, eh?
Yeah.
And their music in that era too, like, let's talk about that for a sec, because in the mid-70s to mid-80s, like you said on the radio, it seemed like they always had a hit.
Yes.
It's
Yep.
just they were always in that mix,
Yep.
right?
One
And
after the
once you
other. The
and let me
top
ask you this,
40.
once you got into a rotation like that and that sound and DJs recognize the value of that sound to get the listeners, right?
Absolutely.
Stick, wouldn't they? That was that calming sound, wasn't it, that they
Mhm.
had?
Yep.
So, man, amazing.
The Doobie Brothers, they improved their playing by performing live all over Northern California here again, 1970. They attracted a particularly strong following among local chapters of the Hells Angels and got a reoccurring gig at one of the bikers' favorite venues. That's the Chateau Liberté. Wow.
I didn't know
And of
that.
course,
Wow.
that's in Santa Cruz, actually up in the mountains there. But that that's a bit of all right. But their music did define the decade of the 70s most prominently. Now, the band's image originally reflected that of their biggest fans. Um, and yes, yeah, definitely the Yacht Rock, definitely Yacht Rock. And then, of course, they had the leather jackets and some of the
They had it all.
motorcycles.
Eh.
But the leadoff song, Nobody, the band's first single, had suffered, it had suffered a bit. It surfaced, but a lot of the radio stations didn't pick up on it. And it was a good song, Nobody. In the late spring, summer of 1971, the record label sent the Doobies out on their first national tour in tandem with the group Mother Earth. Now, here again, another
Yeah.
good rock group, Mother Earth, in the decade of the 70s. So the Doobies, moving to Warner Brothers, newly acquired Amigo Studios in North Hollywood, they started in late October. The band recorded several songs for their next album. And the band's second album was called Toulouse Street, which contained the hits Listen to the Music, Jesus is Just All Right. And this really was their breakthrough success after it was released in July of 1972, Toulouse Street. The string of hits followed, including here again, Johnson's again, he wrote it, Long Train Running, and China Grove.
Yeah.
That's from the 1973 album, The Captain and Tennille. I mean, The Captain and Me. Sorry about that, Tennille.
Different. Yeah.
And in 1973, an appearance on the debut episode of the television music variety show was Don Kirshner's. He was the mastermind. He was the brains of all of great professional DJ Don Kirshner, all of the music of the 60s, the 70s. He was very, very dominant with his really promoting music of the 60s and 70s.
Hey,
The
Randy,
band's first,
did your like, when that in that era in the '70s, did the Doobies sound and the Chicago sound, do you think they had a lot of similarities? Just because I know you're a big Chicago guy.
yes, oh yeah,
Like,
absolutely, Dave. They certainly did. Just the sound, the instrumentation, the musicians, uh, pretty close cut. Yeah, very close cut.
the harmonies, the vocals too, eh? They seem to really flow well together.
Yeah,
I just and I don't know why, but you sort of saw that through the '70s and the '80s, like that sound, the horns were always in something somewhere, you know what I mean? And I'm using
absolutely.
Chicago, obviously, as that example, and the Doobies just seem to have those harmonies that kinda in sync with that sound as well, which was,
That's right.
kinda what we were brought up on, so, you know,
So true. So true. Yeah. And as I mentioned, the band's number one single, Blackwater, it topped the charts in March of 1975. And this eventually propelled the album to a multi platinum status. So
Wow.
huge beginning here.
Yeah.
Now, also, the band, they joined the Beach Boys, Chicago, and Olivia Newton-John on Dick Clark's New Year's Rockin' Eve. That was in December of 1974. I remember watching that. That's Chicago, the Beach Boys, Olivia Newton-John. She's a sweetheart. She went too early on Dick Clark's New Year's Rockin' Eve, December 1974. And of course, Dick Clark, he was the epitome of
Yes.
rock music, the 50s, 60s, 70s, more so, I think, the late 50s, 60s, decade of the 60s, 70s, and early 80s. So the resulting LP, Taking It to the Streets, it debuted a radical change for their sound. They emphasized more on the keyboards and horns, as you were mentioning, Dave. Yep, more on the horns. And Mike McDonald's voice became the band's new signature sound. Taking It to the Streets. You can hear Michael sing that right now. Taking It to the Streets. Also, another track, It Keeps You Running. Both were hits. There was a greatest hit compilation, The Best of the Doobies, okay, followed before year's end. And in 1996, the Recording Industry Association of America certified Best of the Doobies as a Diamond Award in sales. Okay, Diamond Award is in excess of selling over 10 million copies. Wow. I can't even comprehend 500,000 copies, let alone half a dozen. Anyway, both Taking It to the Streets and Living on the Fault Line reflected Johnson's diminishing role. The group, he was having some problems, some health issues there. But after almost a decade on the road, with 7 albums to their credit, Doobie's profile was substantially elevated by the success of their next album, 1978's Minute by Minute.
Oh,
wow.
Yeah.
It spent 5 weeks atop the charts and dominated several radio station formats, and so it should have, for the better part of 2 years. How good is that? McDonald's song, Mike McDonald, What a Fool Believes, as we mentioned earlier, was written by Kenny Loggins, was the band's second #1 single, and earned the songwriting duo a Grammy Award for Record of the Year. So they're into these Grammys. They're winning lots of Grammys. The album won a Grammy for Pop Vocal Performance by a Group and was nominated for Album of the Year. Like, just to get a nomination at the Grammys,
Yeah.
like that's huge. But to win, that's even better. Both What a Fool Believes and the title track were nominated for Song of the Year. What a Fool Believes winning the award. Good for them. In early 1979, the Doobies toured Japan, and it was in support of their Minute by Minute album. They did a lot of concerts, Dave, over in Japan. The Japan folks just really rallied around the Doobie Brothers. And of course, they had stops at Madison Square Garden, New York City. They had some benefit concerts, and they also had shows that incorporated these particular artists. Bonnie Raitt, superstar in country, Crosby, Stills, and Nash, good, bordering kind of light rock to folk a bit.
Yeah.
James Taylor, Carly Simon, nobody does it better than Carly. Jackson Browne, he's always running on empty. God, I better not say that.
He's a great pretender too. He's a great pretender.
Gas stations might not love me for saying that, but yeah, running on empty. And of course, the boss, Bruce Springsteen and John Hall. With this number of superstar artists, like, how could they go wrong? Like, and to bring them into their performances, into their stage concerts, they knew exactly what they were doing. Darn right. Mike McDonald's numerous guest vocal appearances on hits by artists such as Kenny Loggins, Christopher Cross, he's our sailing guy, major quadruple hit for him in 1980, Chris Cross, Warren Wood, and Nicolette Larson. Nicolette Larson, of course, another one of the disco queens, along with Donna Summers. So in 1982, they were going to do a farewell tour on the condition that this truly would be the end of the Doobie Brothers. At their last concert at the Greek Theater in Berkeley, California, on September the 11th, 1982, they were joined on stage by the founding member, here again, Tom Johnson, for what was presumed to be the final rendition of his staple, China Grove. Former members, Porter, Hossack, and Hartman, subsequently took to the stage for an extended version of Listen to the Music. Wow. That is interesting.
It is.
Excuse me.
So I do appreciate their music, and I do think with what we're talking about today, I do want to ask at the end some questions about the Doobie Brothers before we move on, because I think the Doobies are going to basically take up this whole first show.
Yeah,
we're
that's true.
going to have a 3-parter here, a 4-parter, because I do think it's important that we sort of dive into who this band was and how that connection to Yacht Rock was formed.
Right on. So we have the lead vocalist, Johnson, and Simons and McPhee. The live album Way Tour was released in 1983, and the Greek Theater concert was released in 2011. That was live at the Greek Theater concert. The Doobies did not work together for the next 5 years. However, post-Doobies, Mike McDonald became established as a solo artist. His voice dominated the adult contemporary radio through the 1980s, and he experienced a renaissance of popularity in the 21st century as an interpreter of the Motown sound classics.
Oh, okay.
That's where we bring the mid-60s in for Mike McDonald. Their third concert was held at the Hollywood Bowl, and I've attended maybe 4 or 5 performances there with various groups at the Hollywood Bowl. As far as acoustics go, there's not another place on earth that has acoustics like the Hollywood Bowl. Unbelievable. Just really, really a wonderful exposition of sound personified just to the limit. Get a chance to get to the Hollywood Bowl in California, Dave. Be there, do that. It's a lifetime experience just to listen to the sound.
Do
Blows your
you
mind.
remember? Do you remember who you saw there?
Let's see. The Doobie Brothers. We saw Boss Skaggs. He was one.
Yeah.
The Little River Band. Yeah, the Little River Band was the other. We saw those 2 performances.
That's pretty cool.
Wanted to see the Doobies, but time didn't permit. We had to drive back from California. Those years, Dave, my brother Mark, who's still in our family jewelry business, took extensive courses on gemology nearby, and can't think of the name of the small burg there, and he got to see a lot of performances at the Hollywood Bowl also. A lot more than the time we had. We were kind of limited on time, but hey, it worked out. We got to see it, and it was very, very good. Now, the third concert that was held at the Hollywood Bowl was reportedly the venue's fastest sellout since the Beatles. Like, how good is that?
Yeah.
And the Beatles had played there 20 years earlier. So, like, being right up there with the Beatles, like, that says a lot for the Doobies. In 1991, Brotherhood was their next released album. They kind of grew their hair back out a bit for this and wore a little bit of denim and leather. But the accompanying tour featured, ready for this, Joe Walsh on the bill. He was ranked among the 10 least profitable tours of 1991 summer season by the North American Concert Promotion. Well, that was their take on it, but that's not really true because the ticket sales for these concerts were more than above average. So I really don't know where they're getting that. Anyway, in 1987, the Doobie Brothers alumni band reunited on October 17th and October 19th of 1992 at the Concord Pavilion in Concord, California. And it was a benefit show for one of the musicians' children there. Okay, the band toured continuously, and we're talking now 1993. In 1995, they reunited with Mike McDonald for a co-headliner tour with the Steve Miller Band. Okay,
Nice.
Steve Miller Band, heavy in the 70s. The Dreams Come True tour featured all three primary songwriters and singers and reflected all phases of the band's career. That would have been something to see.
Yeah.
On January the 28th, 1996, they performed during the Super Bowl 30 pregame show at Sun Devil Stadium in Tempe, Arizona. Wow. And that's the 30th Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Just a few years ago.
Just a few years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, that's going back in the time machine a few years already. But I didn't know they did that, so that's kind of an interesting fact.
Yeah, unbelievable. In the 1996 live double album, Rockin' Down the Highway and Wildlife Concert, featured Michael McDonald on 3 of his signature tunes. He was a reoccurring special guest with the group for benefits. This was a private corporate group, and their parties, such as he did the song at the wedding reception of Lisa Minnelli and David Guest.
Didn't know it.
And that was the Doobies' former publicist. Wow. How good is that? In 1999, Rhino Records released the group's first box set, Long Train Runnin', 1970 to the year 2000, which featured remastered tunes from the band's entire catalog, a new studio recording of the live staple Little Bitty Pretty One, that's a good song, and an entire disc of previously unreleased studio outtakes and live recordings. We're talking, here we are, 2000.
Yeah, they're still
And
got all this music.
Yeah. On October the 26th, 2004, the Doobie Brothers released Live at Wolf Trap. Here again, it was a live album recorded at Wolf Trap National Park for the Performing Arts to Vienna, Virginia on July 25th of that same year. Wow. For its 2010 and 2012 summer tours, the band was once again paired with Chicago, and it had been, as it had been in 1974, they paired with Chicago in 1999 and 2008. So we're into the 2000s now. Doobies are still going strong. They released their 13th studio album, World Gone Crazy. What a title for
What a
an
title for an
album.
album. Yeah,
That
these days.
kind
yeah.
of applies in today's world. Now we won't go there. The official documentary, Let the Music Play, the story of the Doobies, was released in 2012. In 2014, the Doobies, in conjunction with Sony Music Nashville, announced that their 14th studio album, Southbound, would cover their greatest hits, with leads and backup vocals for several country artists, including, you ready for this? Sarah Evans, Vince Gill, Hunter Hayes, Casey James, Toby Keith, Love and Theft, Brad Paisley, Blake Shelton, Chris Young, and the Zac Brown Band. Oh,
Wow,
gee, dang it. And those
I
are
never knew
all
about that. Huh,
superstar
yeah.
country artists. Here again, they're bringing them into the fold with the performance of the concerts. The Doobie Brothers, with Michael McDonald, were featured guests on the 47th annual CMA Awards to celebrate the album and were joined later by Hunter Hayes, Jennifer Nettles, Hillary Scott, and they performed Listen to the Music and Taking It to the Streets. So you can see the Doobies bringing in a lot of superstar talent, and they're superstars in their own right. What do you think, Dave?
Oh, I totally agree. I gotta ask too, because I do wanna get your feel for it. Why do you think, in your professional opinion, why do you think the Doobies have stayed so prominent all these years? Like, the music still sounds great today, it still sounds fresh. What do you think is the secret to their sauce that does that? What do you think?
Well, I think, Dave, they had established right from the decade of the 70s, excuse me.
Yeah, they kinda you get a they kinda early on, I think that music was infectious, and I think that for me, I think that's part of the sound that you always hear with the Doobies, and like we talked about, they do they have a couple lead vocalists, they change back and forth, but the sound always sort of was there a little bit, that feel, that vibe that it was a Doobies song, so you recognized it pretty quickly.
Yep,
And then
so
you were
true.
like, "Oh, it's the Doobies, so it's gonna be good," right? You kinda went that way with it, I guess. But what do you think was the longevity? What do you think, why are they still hanging on? I mean, it's not real danceable music, is it? It's not like you can, cut a rug with it, but it's constant, it's there.
Mhm. I think in the 70s, Dave, the decade of the 70s, the Doobies established themselves with their great hits. This was a super solid foundation base of music, like Listen to the Music, um, all of their hits, Taking It to the Street, Long Train Running. In the decade of the 70s, they had they were the best rock band going. Nobody could touch them. There's a lot of other rock bands, but they established a super foundation. And then in the later years, going into the 80s and 90s, now they're bringing in other
Yeah,
band groups to play and to support their concerts. Chicago. Look at all
yeah,
these country stars,
yeah,
like Springsteen. They had a solid base. Now they're going to inject a little more rock style with all of these rock stars. How ingenious was that? And I think you really got to attribute that to Tom Johnson and Michael McDonald. They were the driving force to, well, let's, okay, we're the Doobies. We've made it in the rock world now. So with our concerts, let's bring in some others and share the concert with others. Springsteen, Boss Skaggs, some of the other like Steely Dan.
yeah.
Hey,
But do you think early on, because of their sound, like, were they maybe possibly one of the early crossovers? Because you could almost think they were country at some point. Like, you know what I mean? But then you'd hear the horns, and then you
the
hear
horns.
the harmonies, and you're thinking almost like the Eagles, and then you're thinking, a lot of bands in that era had those similarities, but
That's
their
right.
consistency and, like, the lyrics to their songs too, we didn't even really touch on that today, but just they unbelievable, like, and I think that's the other part that people relate to, right?
Mhm.
And then you like you said, then they might sound a little bit like Chicago, and then they might sound a little bit like, and it's just they've been able to just transform themselves whenever needed, but the music's always consistent.
That's right. And um, they had the sense of purpose to establish a good foundation of hits in the 70s.
Yeah.
And then this allowed them to bring in some other superstar acts to their concerts. And really, once again, you got to hand it to Tom Johnson and Michael McDonald uh, to see that far ahead and project
Yeah.
that like
And still
unbelievable.
to this day, they're touring and doing great and sounding wonderful, and it's
Mhm.
just you're like, "Damn, these guys, such pros," right? To last, like you said, the longevity right there, the constant touring. It's something obviously as a group they enjoy. And like any don't get me wrong, like any band like that, they had their ups and downs internally, but you can sort of see they made it through to the other side. all intact, still friends, and still creating great music, which is, which is kind of what you want to see today, right? You want to be able to look back at those bands and still enjoy them when you see them out touring.
That's right, Dave. And just to finish up on the Doobies started their 2023 touring schedule in Australia and Japan. That would have been in April of 2023, before making their way to Hawaii and then returning back to continental US in May. So here we are. It's 2023, just 3 years ago. The Doobies are still performing. The band opened for the Eagles on the latter's The Long Goodbye Tour in November of 2023. Like, how good is that? They opened for the Eagles. Wow. On November 17th, 2023, the Doobie Brothers released a new single entitled Lahana. That's Hawaiian. And
Okay.
that was for a fundraiser for the producer's little child who came from Hawaii, was born in Hawaii. In 2024, Tom Johnson rejoined the Doobies, had some health difficulties, and he continued on with their 50th anniversary
Yeah.
tour. 50th anniversary tour. That says it all right there, Dave. The Doobie
It's
Brothers.
Yeah. We didn't even, that's the funny part here. Today's show, we had all these bands listed and we're already out of time and we only did one.
Yeah.
That's what I love about our show. We kind of get enthralled with the bands and we want to talk about their music and sort of take that moment to give them their space. But folks, that's just one of Yacht Rock,
Right
of our
on.
Yacht Rock series. It looks like it's going to be, because next month we'll touch on Toto, Hall & Oates, and Ambrosia, we hope. We'll see how
Sure.
far we
Yeah.
get, Randy? But we're just going to take
Sounds
our
great.
time and enjoy this, because I agree. I love that we're able to sit here and just talk about the Doobies for, we 40 minutes. We really didn't even get really into it that deep. We were
Oh,
just
yeah,
talking about
for
the
sure,
history
Dave.
and what their music means to both you and I. It's not like you could play them at dances, is it? They're not that kind of dance beat, are they?
That's right.
Do you get
Not
any
really.
requests?
No. They're kind of just in between, borderline. It's really good listening music, relaxing music. And, if you've had a stressful day or a stressful week on the weekend, kick back. The Doobie Brothers, here we come. We're taking it to the streets.
Do you think they built their music that way? Like, do you think they made their music for radio because of the 70s?
Definitely. Good point, Dave. I definitely do. Their music was focused and concentrated on radio stations, AM radio stations, and FM radio stations. Even to this day, AM 740 out of Toronto, that's the Zoomers radio station of all time. And that's music that they play from the 50s, 60s, and 70s, predominantly, those 3 decades. And they do it very, very well. AM 740. Get a
I
chance to
gotta give it a
listen to that,
listen.
folks. All due respect to our local 98.9 and oldies 99.7, take a listen to AM 740. They've got some good music on that radio station too.
It's important too that we take that opportunity to recognize how valuable radio still is in this day and age.
Oh, yeah, very much
Right?
so.
Like, I think so. It's that voice you hear, the
Mhm.
music. It's all those pieces that you and I grew up with, and just how it made a difference in our lives and what we listened to literally every day. You know what I
That's
mean? There
right.
was no there was no apps, folks.
Yep,
Anybody that's in our
true.
age group knows that you're trying to find that song on the radio, or you were bootlegging that tape from somewhere. Not that I ever did that, Randy Hummel.
Yeah.
I always purchased, but I think we're all a little guilty there at some point. Thanks
Sounds
for
great.
doing this, man. It's
That's
just
great.
it's a great show to talk about these guys, and I really appreciate you taking the time today. Look forward to part 2 for Yacht Rock. It's probably gonna be part 2, part 3, part 4, folks, the way the way we go. But
Sounds
thanks
good.
for
And
doing this.
for our next show, we've got some really nice bands too during that era. And a little later, as David alluded to, Ambrosia, Holland Oates.
Yeah,
We
Toto.
might have time maybe for Toto. Toto.
They might take the whole show too.
Yeah. um, where's little Toto? Yeah.
Yeah, little
Remember The
Toto,
Wizard
yeah.
of Oz,
Wizard of
1939?
Oz, yeah.
And
I think there's a story you're going to share next month about that, isn't there?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right.
I never knew that the band Toto took their
Don't
name.
don't wreck it. No, hold on.
Anyway, we'll see what happens.
All right, buddy. Thanks for doing this. Chat next month.
Very good, Dave. Thanks very much. Have a good week, and we'll talk soon.